Welcome to today's Silicon Bites. And of course, there is an absolute flurry of news stories. I'll probably have to do several of these today and even over the weekend in order to keep track of everything that's going on. Today's episode is about the Odesa firestorm. This is the real Russian world peace, and it is anything but peaceful. Russian drones have hit civilian targets in Ukraine's Odesa. The port city is on fire after a massive Russian attack against civilian targets and civilian infrastructure. Three people injured and a high-rise apartment building and a shopping center destroyed. This is the essence of the Russian world: violence, mayhem, and a desire to spread fear. This is Russia's response to Trump's so-called peace deal. This is what American weakness and naivety leads to. Rather than dampening down Russia's violence, it provokes it into yet more intense fury. Russian forces launched a mass drone attack on Ukraine's Black Sea port of Odesa late on Thursday, striking three locations that triggered fires, while three districts of the city suffered from power cuts. Odesa has been a frequent target of Russian attacks in the 3 Years' War, particularly the city's port facilities, which handle vital grain exports and provide essential income to support Ukrainian economy. Odessa was engulfed in flames just hours after US President Donald Trump expressed optimism about ending the war and as peace talks are set to resume on Monday, although they are more and more coming to resemble capitulation and betrayal talks, which pointedly are taking place between the US and Russia directly, but with little or no influence in the process from Ukraine or Europe. At least that is what the actions and decisions seem to point to. Trump recently held separate phone calls with Putin and Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky on implementing a partial ceasefire. Projected optimism about reaching an end to the war on Thursday, saying we're doing pretty well in that regard. Well, I'm afraid, Mr. Trump, reality tells a very different story. Zelensky said a team from Ukraine will also attend, with parallel meetings likely to take place, and urged Putin to stop making unnecessary demands that only prolong the war. But making extra demands is exactly the point of the process. From Russia's perspective, it's what they did during the Minsk process as well, as Russia seeks to chip away at Ukrainian resilience and salami slice away its sovereignty and agency. I believe we'll get it done. We'll see what happens, Trump said on Thursday, referring to the talks. Videos shared on social media show what appears to be civilian infrastructure on fire and huge plumes of smoke rising over the city of Odessa. Russian strikes on Ukraine do not stop, despite their propaganda claims. Every day and every night, nearly 100 or more drones are launched, along with ongoing missile attacks. With each such launch, the Russians expose to the world their true attitude towards peace, Zelensky said on Thursday. Ukraine and Russia have exchanged aerial assaults in the days since the Kremlin agreed to temporarily hold attacks on energy infrastructure targets, but stopped short of signing off on a broader ceasefire that was sought by the US. And this is the interesting part. The US believed that what was agreed was a halt to attacks on energy and infrastructure. The Russians played them masterfully and issued a communique that was worded very differently to the American one, based on the very same apparently agreed objectives from the same meeting. The Russian one only refers to energy infrastructure, not energy and infrastructure. Send a property dealer to negotiate with Soviet spies, and you are setting yourself up for an inevitable failure. The Americans got played, and the Russians are mercilessly mocking them, including on state TV outlets. Zelensky on Wednesday accused Putin of already breaking his pledge, saying that Russia attacked Ukraine with 150 drones, including strikes on energy facilities. Zelensky has said it is ready to pause attacks on Russia's energy and civilian infrastructure, saying his team will prepare a list of civilian targets to be included in a future list. That is a list for Russia not to target. Knowing Russia, this will become a list that they exactly target. Ukraine unconditionally agrees to a ceasefire, but it is waiting for the aggressor to agree, Zelensky said on Thursday while speaking at a press conference in Norway. But by its actions, Russia has already rejected the discussed ceasefire agreement with Trump before the ink was even dry on the paper. But while Russia hits civilian objects, Ukraine continues to hit Russian military targets. Thursday, Ukraine struck a military airfield deep inside Russian territory, sparking a huge explosion, Russian and Ukrainian officials both announced. Ukraine's military confirmed it was behind the attack on Engels Air Base, more than 465 miles from the Ukrainian border, saying it targeted the airbase because that was being used by Russia's Air Force to launch missile strikes on the territory of Ukraine and terrorist attacks against the civilian population. Separately, on Friday, Russia and Ukraine accused each other of attacking a major Russian gas pumping and measuring station that lies in a part of Russia's Kursk region that Moscow's forces recaptured from Ukraine earlier this month. Moscow said Ukraine had blown up the facility in an act of terrorism. Kiev said that Russian forces shelled it with artillery in a provocation and denied any involvement. By an interesting coincidence, Czech President Petr Pavel was in the port city of Odesa on an official visit at the time of the attack. Ukrainian official Dmytro Kuleba said Czech President Petr Pavel, a vocal backer of Kiev, who has led an effort to source more than 1 million artillery shells for Ukraine's war effort, was in the port city for talks with regional officials at the time of the strikes. Significantly, it was during our meeting that the enemy once again massively attacked the Odesa region, Governor Ole Kippert said on the Telegram messaging app. The long-range drones buzzed into the city in several waves, damaging infrastructure, residential houses, and commercial buildings and causing multiple fires, the Interior Ministry said. We could not do anything. We were just standing and watching as everything was on fire. I am in total shock, the shop's owner, who gave her name as Ina, told the outlet Reuters. Alexandra Kovalenko, a military analyst, told Reuters that Russia used new tactics for that attack, having its drones descend from a higher altitude than usual and at high speeds to make it harder for Ukraine's air defences. He said it was one of the most massive attacks on Odesa since Russia invaded in February 2022. It was intimidation, terror against the civilian population, he said. Russia launched a total of 214 drones at Ukraine overnight, the Air Force also announced. It did not specify how many drones specifically targeted Odesa. The Air Force said it shot down 114 of the drones and that another 81 drones were lost. Lost is a term, a euphemism they use for those that were suppressed using electronic warfare devices. So what is the lesson from all this? As so-called peace talks intensify, expect Russia to say one thing and do the opposite. Expect attacks to intensify. Expect Russia to lie and lie and lie. Expect them to strike more targets and more strategic targets. Expect the attacks to become more vicious and pernicious, such as the Odesa Firestorm. Expect provocation, hypocrisy, sabotage, and mockery from the Russian side.